Hey, hello everyone. Jose J. Garcia with Garcia Mohom University. My guest for today is a real estate investor. She is a speaker, a coach, an entrepreneur. Celie Levin, how are you?
Good, hon. How are you?
Very good, very good. We just got off a coaching call, so we'll be talking on some of that. And you and I share the same coaches, same mentors. We obviously have the same social networking. But for those that don't know you, tell us about Celie.
Well, I just turned 70 in September, even though I don't act like 70. Originally from Philadelphia. And when my first grandson actually, my son went to the U of A and never came back east and met his wife. And when our first grandson was born in 2007, I left the Philadelphia area and came to Tucson, Arizona, and been here ever since. I
Arizona,
also started, I started investing in real estate actually in 1996 when my son couldn't find a place to live because he left it up to three girls who were his roommates.
Absolutely, and we were talking about some of that, how you got into real estate. So let's jump on that. But I mean, not just Tucson, but Arizona. Period. There seems to be a lot of investors that we connect with, network that are out in that area. So interesting. We're actually going to be paying a visit to very soon. Some of our events that we do, coachings and that sort of thing. And we'll talk about some of that. But before we got on here, you were talking about some of this. Tell us slightly about some of this, your first investment, your real estate.
Well, the first investment was 1245 North First Avenue. And I bless that place every time I pass by because it actually paid for both of my kids' college education and bought myself a car. So I took a $9,300 investment and turned it into $130,000 because
how you do it?
It happened. And, I say it happened by accident. They say there are no accidents. It's about relationships. When my son couldn't find a place after he was in the dorms his first year, I called the innkeeper of a bed and breakfast that I used to go to. And I said, Diana, give me your friend Wendy, the realtor, give me her phone number. And she gave me the advice that I should look at buying something instead of just, having him pay rent every month. Not understanding the Tucson market at all and not being in real estate, I had him go with her and go look. There was a house, and my son said that it was right by the campus, and I called the realtor and I said, Wendy, tax, tags, and baggage, what's my payment? With a 10%, it was a $93,000 house. Pennsylvania, you never heard of a $93,000 house. And she said it would be $650. And I have to be real transparent here. I flunked every math class there was, flunked algebra with a tutor. And so when she told me the price was the mortgage payment was going to be $650, I went, well, wait a minute. I have three girls, each paying $250 a month. That's $750. And there's a little casita guest house in the back for another $180 a month. And I went, holy crap. So I'm going to have some extra money and not pay the $250 for my own kid. It just made logical sense. So I bought it. And then my son made the mistake of inviting his sister while she was in high school for her spring break. And then she decided she wanted to go to the U of A. When she was done, I sold it. And I bought it for $93,000, and 6 years later, in 2003-04, I sold it for $180,000, and I walked away with a check for like $91,000. it was enough in those days to pay off both college educations and buy
Wow.
myself a car. I went, wow, for somebody that took 5 years to get out of high school and flunked math, I did okay for myself.
And you were
So it
introduced to
shows
real estate.
I was introduced to real estate, kind of got hooked, because to me, the return was just nuts.
Mhm.
So I knew that and understand I was in my 50s at that point. And I said, okay, I like this. So when it was sold, my son never came back. He got married in 04. And I thought, well, let me just go out there and visit and see if maybe there's some more deals to be had. So actually there were. I ended up buying a duplex, a triplex, and a quadplex, all from the same seller.
Mhm.
And it was all owner finance because
Wow.
he was a doctor and had an IRA. So it was 10% down. And that was my first experience with seller finance. I really didn't know much about it. And they said, well, he wants to do owner finance, which meant that I didn't have to go for a mortgage. I had good credit. And all of a sudden, I was a real estate investor. At the
Absolutely.
time with my son, I wasn't thinking real estate investor. I was just solving a problem.
There you go. Like entrepreneurs do.
And that's how it started. So, for anybody out there that doesn't think that they can do it, or you need all kinds of education, and you just have to do it differently. It's out there for you. So that's how it started. And I've had those properties. I bought another one. And then when the market changed back in 07, 08, 09, I've been a member of our local RIA here, Real Estate Investment Association, since 05. And then they started talking about fix and flips. So actually, my husband and I are in the business together. I was handling the acquisitions and the property management, and he just handled construction. So, and repairs and that kind of thing. So when the market turned, I went, maybe we should just try one. And again, I don't do spreadsheets. I don't do calculators. I just looked at the MLS and I went, okay, I can buy this house for 50. Now I have to figure out how much it needs for repairs. I see what they're selling for repaired, fixed up, and on the market. So we hired a contractor for the first, couple deals. And I just listened and saw what the prices were. I got pretty darn good at going to a house without a contractor, just going with the realtor and going, yeah, roof, bathroom, kitchen. Yeah, I can do this for about 20, 25. So if I know I can buy it for 50, and I know I'm going to put 25 into it, and I'm going to sell it for 100, there you go. And that's what I did.
And what I'm picking up out of this here is you don't overthink it. I mean, you come in, you keep it as to what it is. And I think that's a mistake that most people, especially trying to get into real estate or any kind of investing, is spinning, that overthinking of what ifs and kind of thing. You took action, you went after it, you saw that it checked out the numbers, and you jumped into it.
Exactly. And that's what I see with a lot of people. They overanalyze it. They analyze themselves out of the deal. It's like,
I agree.
it's like our coach JT Fox says, what's the worst case? What's the best case? What's the most likely? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, decide. Boom.
There you go. Very good. So let's fast forward now. A few years have gone by. You're killing it. What are some of the biggest challenges that you encounter when investing in real estate,
Oh
if any?
boy. Well, the good, the bad, and the ugly. A lot of
Sure.
ugly. If you want to be honest about it, people think it's a pipe dream and it's real easy. So in the beginning, before we could afford, when we just had those rentals, before we could afford hiring a cleaning service, I was in there cleaning the apartments,
Hands
you
on.
know, just I just went in and did it, you know, cleaning tenants, dirty stove, greasy stoves, running around, the cockroaches. I mean, it was a mess. But you know what? I paid my dues. I did what I had to do.
There you
I
go.
never felt that I was, above anything. I just, okay, it needs to be cleaned. We have another tenant that wants to move in. Okay, get in there and do it. And in the beginning, my husband would go in, and if it needed painting, he would do the painting. So that's how it started. And then we did that for quite a while, but a couple years ago, we stopped because we could see what was going on. The spreads weren't there. Now you weren't buying a house for 50. Now it was 100, and maybe you would sell it for 120. Well, there's no room to
Sure.
fix it. So we stopped. And what we did was we had a couple of properties that we actually sold to our roofer. And it was funny because our roofer, Molina, he said to me one day, Celie, I want to buy that house, the one you're going to sell over there on District. I said, well, how much money you got? And he says, well, I can put $25,000 down. I went, okay. And I started carrying notes.
Okay.
So in real estate, it's right, left, because there's always going to be turns, always going to be turns. In the beginning, we got lucky with the owner finance.
Mhm.
But then when we wanted to buy, 2 and 3 fix and flips, it's like, where do you get the money for that? Because
Right.
banks weren't lending, because of everything that had gone on with the crash, they weren't really lending. So being involved with the RIA, our local RIA, met different people. And this is how people think that real estate is about properties. It's really about relationships. And that's how I built relationship with the private money lenders. And we could always get the money that we needed to do the fix and flips. But it was relationships. You had to be credible. You did your first deal with them. They got their money back. They were happy. They made a nice percentage on their money, much more than they would have gotten in the bank.
Mhm.
And so they said, okay, what do you got next? Because they were looking to turn their money. And
Sure.
so that was one of the, issues that you had in the beginning of real estate. If you want to do these, you have to find private money lenders. I already had title people. I got relationships with mortgage people because when we did our fix and flips, our base was first-time home buyers. And we actually worked in the Hispanic neighborhoods. And a lot of the homeowners, the buyers that we got, we helped them become first-time home buyers. And a lot of them were the first ones, generational, that actually owned a home. We would send them to our mortgage person and our mortgage brokers. And I said, look, a lot of them didn't have any credit, which is actually worse than having bad credit. Bad credit could be fixed.
Sure.
If they had no credit, they had no history. So the mortgage people here were great at telling them, okay, this is what you need to do. You need to get a, they were the kind of loans that were like $300. They'd get a credit card for $300. And we would tell them, okay, spend it on gas, food, and then pay it off, but leave a little bit of a balance. So they'd build a history. And it was fabulous, but, you know, because they wanted to buy a home, they didn't know how to do it. So, and a lot of times our houses were actually sold before they went on the MLS, because the neighbors would come in and see what we were doing. And they go, oh, I want my daughter to live here. One dad, actually, his daughter bought the house next door. And they opened up the whole backyard for the 2 yards so that the boys could play soccer back and forth. It was great. So that's where we worked. And it was great because it was a sense of community.
Absolutely. You spoken
And we
like
helped
true
a lot of
entrepreneur.
people.
Yeah, you're a problem
Yeah.
solver. You're solving problems. This is what you got to do. Many times get creative. And you mentioned a couple of things there. One of them being that, you know, like you went from real estate investing now to doing notes, and I'm sure other things you can do. There's so many avenues, so many ways you can get into real estate, including, you know, I'm into mobile homes, which, you know, hit inside of real estate, whereas less risk and even higher reward. So you've heard me, I'm sure, pitch
Love it.
Absolutely.
Love it.
What is your knowledge in mobile homes, manufactured housing?
Actually, and this is a funny story. I knew just from being in different environments and going to different meetings, and that mobile homes were great. They called them cash cows, and I'm sure they still do. And I'm like, let me find out about these cash cows now.
ATM machines.
Yep. Yeah. So I actually met with someone that was selling a mobile home park. And I took him to lunch. And I said, Mark, I'd like to take you to lunch. I'd like to learn about the mobile home park that you're selling. He gave me a great education. And what he does is he's owned mobile home parks for years. He does not own any of the homes. If he buys a mobile home park that has park-owned units, he turns them into seller financing. Mm-hmm. So he never gets any calls for any repairs. I said, dang, you're so smart to do that. And quite frankly, if we found the right deal, we would do it in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And with mobile homes, you know, the goal is to obviously graduate into more and more. Same as with real estate, but you mentioned that, and that is the goal, is to have land on the real estate and simply turn it into a giant parking lot. You know, people that live there, they own their own. You don't get any calls because you're not a landlord. So that's huge, and it's a win-win. You give somebody the chance to own what they consider home. Celie, can anybody get into real estate?
Pretty much, yeah. It's just a matter of relationships. Yes, anybody can get into it. I just want to tell you one quick thing. You know what? What I call the mobile home park business? Just pay me for my dirt.
There you go. That's the way it works.
And yes, you can steal that.
What do you think is the number one reason people don't get into real estate or any investing for that matter?
Not knowing. Just, it's fear.
Lack of education?
Yeah, fear. Not thinking they have the money to do it. But fear is, I think fear. Just afraid. You know, it's like if you don't know how to swim, you're afraid to jump in the water.
That's a new one.
You know, you might try to put your toe into it a little bit, but nah. So I think that the fear is,
insecurity, you know, in themselves. Yeah.
I mean, I'm more impulsive. I'm more ADD. It's kind of, when they told me like about the house with Mike, it just made logical sense. And then anybody can get into real estate. And what people don't realize is you really have the finances around you. You just don't know who they are. Like when we started talking to friends about what we were doing, and they'd pull us aside and say, well, what do you mean you pay people 10%? Well, they're getting nothing in the bank. And they go, what do you mean? Tell me about that. So I think the more you let people know what you do and how they could possibly benefit from that. I mean, so let's say you know somebody that doesn't have a lot of money in the bank, but maybe they have 20 or 25,000. Well, they can finance your rehab. And they can make 10% on their 8, 10, 12% on their money. Mm-hmm. Now they've benefited. They've helped you rehab your house, and they've made a lot of money that they wouldn't have made. So yeah, anybody can get into it. I don't think it's smart. Actually, when I look back at it, I thought to myself, well, don't do things the way I did. I just jumped into it.
But you don't know what you don't know, and you can't figure it out from a sideline. You have to get out there and you have to take action. And that's what you did. You got out there, you took action, and you figured it out some way, somehow. So that's huge. Well said on that. Celie, you've shared stages with some very successful people. You know, I was actually looking at your social media, and I caught interest on it is you've been up there with Hugh Hilton, George Ross, JT Fox, which you mentioned, and Frank McKinney, all which I've been my coach and my mentor. So that was interesting.
Oh, Frank and I have a great relationship. I'm going to his treehouse. Oh. I'm going to the treehouse.
I will be there in a few days, depending on when people are watching this video again. But he's my current coach and mentor. So yeah.
It's fabulous, fabulous.
He took me to what he considers, which it is one of many, but the nicest mobile home parks in America. And we got to walk it, talk to residents. It was very nice. Down where he's located. So.
Right. So was it a 55 and over? Because they have a lot of retirees that live in mobile home parks.
They do. And when you think about Florida, the whole state is more retired kind of, community, if you will. Most parks are 55 plus, age restricted. Not this park. This park was interested. It was all age. It was a community within itself. It was interesting. I'll be posting some videos on that as well if you want to check them out. But
nice.
Question to that is, how important is it for you and for people to be surrounded by more successful people?
Well, what we've been told, if you're the smartest person in the room or the richest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You need to be with people who are way above you. I mean, look at JT. He's with Hugh Hilton, and, he's with billionaires. So that's how you level up, is to be, in rooms where people are bigger than you. And you know what, coming from an inner city environment where I grew up in the 1950s and 60s, I mean, you were rich if you had a single family house instead of a row house. So being in the same room with a Hugh Hilton or a Frank McKinney, that would never have even entered my mind. I mean, I'm a kid from an inner city row house. Wait a minute. I'm sitting there with Frank McKinney. I'm sitting there with Hugh Hilton, George Ross. I mean, but they put their pants on one leg at a time, just like us. And the thing is, they'll invest with us because they know us, they like us, and they trust us. And that's what it's about. Relationships. It's not about the bricks and mortar. It's all about relationships.
Absolutely. What is one of the most successful, something that a mentor, a coach has told you that has really made a change, a difference?
Well, actually, with JT and Francie and the group, they encouraged me to go into the coaching. I would have never thought about doing that even though that's what I've been doing for 15 years with the newbies in our real estate group. And one of them, actually, George gave me a testimonial. He was in his 20s, I think, at the time. And he said, at the meeting, he said, Celie, I want you to look at this and see if I should do this. And I looked at the deal, and I'm just like that. I said, oh, George, run away. It's no good. Run away from that. He said, well, what about this? And I went, are you going to live there? And he said, yeah. I went, go for it. I said, here's the name and phone number of the person that'll finance it for you. He paid it off in 7 years, lived there, paid it off in 7 years. And I think it was November. He called me and he said, Celie, my house is worth a lot more money. What should I do? I'm thinking about selling it. I said, George, where are you going to live? And he said, well, remember the house I told you about my dad has, and I can move in there. I said, you can move in there. Okay, so you have a place to live and you can put $130,000 in your pocket. Put that sucker on the market right now. Get ready to move. And it was just, the fear. What should I do? And now, I mean, there he is, paid off the property. And I've been coaching and mentoring, but it's just like normal for me. And now I needed to move into where it was another business.
And that's why you're a coach. Anybody tuning in will be lucky to have you as a coach and mentor. But last question for you. What is your biggest goal for 2021?
I'd like to get a couple apartment complexes, go bigger.
Multi-door.
I would, and that's the other thing, go bigger. Nobody ever told me to go bigger, that you can do that. I knew I could do things, but 100, 200 unit apartment complex or a mobile home park. I'd love to get a mobile home park. So
we'll be talking.
And have people pay me for my dirt. So if anybody would like to be coached, my website is www.successhasnonumber.com.
That was my next question, and I will be linking all your social medias and the site you just gave us to on this video for those of you tuning in. Last word of advice for those that are coming on here.
Excuse me?
Advice, what would be one last advice you would give to anybody tuning in?
Go for it. I'm 70, and that's why my website is Success Has No Number. Doesn't matter if you're 18 or if you're 80. Don't die with your music in you. Don't be buried with your ideas. Put it out there. And I'll tell you a perfect example. And that was when my son was when he was in college, he worked for a cactus nursery part-time. And he called me one day when he was getting ready to graduate, and he said, Mom, he said, I think there's a niche out here. I said, a niche for what? He said, for residential landscape design. I went, okay. He said, I think I can start a business. And I said to him at that point, I said, Mike, go for it. I said, I don't want you to ever regret something down the road. And I said, and what's the worst that happens? You start the business, it doesn't work out. With your degree in plant sciences and biology and chemistry, you could get a job anywhere. Go for it. Well, that was over 20 years ago. He owns a commercial building. He has 8 employees. That business, I mean, he's doing very, very well. Thank you, God. But I just told him to go for it. Now he's got his family. He can support his family. And it was an idea. It started with an idea. He saw a need. And that's how it, just go for it. Try it.
it started with an idea and he had your support. So there you have it. That's great stuff. You know, as part of your bio, Celie, I'm going to add motivator because that's what you done here. And anybody tuning in, I'm sure is getting motivated right now. So thank you for coming on here. We can keep you here all day. I know I can definitely keep listening to you, and I'm sure I'll come up with many questions, but I will.
Party Nana. I'm the party Nana.
You got it. When we do come over to Arizona market, we will be connecting with
Please,
you.
yes, please let me know.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Have a wonderful day. See you on our coaching.
Will do. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Jose. Have a wonderful day. Appreciate you.